Hey, this is Evans at Motorcycle.com, and boy am I stoked. I am standing here next to the 2017 Yamaha FZ-09, and I'm getting ready to go out and take it for a ride. I can't wait to sample all the new stuff about it. I'll tell you all about it after I do a little riding.
So my hair is worse than usual, so that means that I have been riding for the last couple hours, and I gotta tell you, the changes in the FZ-09 are pretty amazing. I'll just start with the fuel injection. The EFI map comes from the FJ-09, and that was a bike that I'd always liked the fuel metering on, and the same can be said of the FZ-09 now. The change has gone from being the abrupt throttle being one of the defining characteristics of the FZ-09 to being more of a niggle. Down towards the bottom of the mid-range, there are a few RPM where it's still a little abrupt going from off throttle to on, but basically it's a new motorcycle. I can't say enough about how much nicer the throttle response is compared to the first generation and compared to the previous generation. Then we get into things like the suspension. We went on some pretty bumpy roads today, and I think towards the end of the day I wanted to make some minor adjustments, but other than that, the bike stayed much more planted than it did previously. I would describe the suspension in the previous generations as boingy. You get into a bumpy section of road and the chassis would get all out of sorts. It never did anything evil, but it wasn't planted. With this, with the 2017 FZ-09, you can definitely feel what's going on at the road, and the chassis doesn't get all disconcerted over the bumps, and that's another big thing. Another area that gives the rider confidence is the seat sculpting. For this year, the saddle is a lot flatter than it used to be. It's 5 millimeters higher in the front. So under hard braking and going over those bumps I talked about before, you're not as inclined to slide forward into the tank. So it enables the rider to position his body right where it needs to be. The drive modes have changed along with the EFI. And so that means the three settings you have are A, Standard, and B, with A being the most aggressive, most immediate throttle response, Standard being a little bit softer, and sort of ideal for real-world riding conditions. And then B, it softens it up. I guess it would be more akin to a rain mode. These three modes are pretty much completely usable now, where I couldn't say that before. Standard mode is still my preferred one because I value smooth throttle response over everything else. If you value immediate, instantaneous throttle response, if you're the type of person that whacks the throttle open at the exit of the corner, then you'll probably choose on A mode. Me, I prefer a little more finesse in my throttle application, so I keep it on Standard. If you are the type of person that whacks the throttle open, you'll be happy to know that traction control is here, and it has 3 settings. I never had an issue with it the whole day. I never encountered a situation where I needed it, but I was glad to know it was there because we hit some wet road, some dusty road, all that type of stuff. So it's a good real-world change to have. Another nice improvement for real-world riding is, in addition to the traction control, this year the FZ-09 has ABS. And ABS technology is advanced to the point where I can't think of a reason why a street rider wouldn't want ABS on their bike. And I'm really glad that Yamaha included it on the FZ-09 for 2017. One of the reasons I was selected for this ride today is that I'm the staffer who I would say was least enamored of the FZ-09. Everyone else saw it as all the potential it had. You know, great inexpensive bike, fantastic motor. It was just an EFI flash and suspension tuning away from being a massively functional bike. I guess you could say I never felt like the FZ-09 lived up to its potential. Yes, you could make all the changes that make it a great bike, but in 2017, the EFI has finally lived up to where it should have been in the first place. With the suspension, I felt like Yamaha had always just not spent the R&D time. It was unwilling to spend the additional money or increase the MSRP enough to give the suspension components that it has. I guess Yamaha now feels that the market is there over the years of growth that we've seen with the FZ-09 and its sibling, the FZ-07, that they could raise the price to $89.99 and give the better suspension components that they did. Stylistically, Yamaha has made some big changes in the FZ-09 for 2017. The front end looks a lot more like its bigger sibling, the FZ-10. The 4-beam headlight looks really cool when it's lit up. And then the back end, it's physically shorter while the pillion is a little bit longer. And the lines that have just been cleaned up, specifically moving the license plate down here allows for a much more compact looking back end to the bike. It gives it kind of a European feel with the plate mounted down here. So we're all just gonna have to wait and see how this bike stacks up against the competitors in a shootout sometime in the near future. For the rest of the story on the 2017 Yamaha FZ-09, go to Motorcycle.com and read my full review.